YouTube and Facebook Live on Wednesday. We will see you there.
Full transparency, answering your questions, down to earth, accountable, and accessible to who matters. You. Don't miss Premier Access on the cold hard truth, spilling the tea like no one else.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to Premier Access. We are live now on Facebook, YouTube, and of course, for the first time on Bobo 89.1 FM. So good evening, one, and good evening, all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We do have with us in the studio this evening none other than the Honorable Premier, Mr. Wayne Panton. So good evening, sir. How are you?
Hello, Sandra. I am fair to fine, I guess. A little bit on the tired end, back-to-back 14-hour days, but I'm here as usual, and I'm always appreciative of the opportunity to be on your show and to interact and talk with the wonderful people of our incredible Cayman Islands.
Thank you so much. This is the first time that the premiere is on Bobo 89.1 FM. They're saying that you're coming in a little bit low, so I'm going to try on my end to adjust the volume, but maybe if you can get a little bit closer to the mic,
All
that
right.
would also be helpful. Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. So we've got people who are actually monitoring the live feed on the radio, folks. So do remember now that you can call in 936 Bobo, which is 2626, and you can also jump on the live stream with the usual link if you have a question for the premiere, or if you just like to make a comment. So we have a lot. You've been busy as always. I think that's always an understatement when I say that, but I'm aware of some of what you have been up to, and I wanted to kick off this evening's discussion. I know that your office sent out a statement. It's not often that we get a statement from the Premier's office, but this is in relation to the passing of Mr. Benson Ebanks. I just wanted to go ahead and give you an opportunity to make some comments in relation to that.
Yes. Yeah, we did issue a statement. I thought it was very appropriate to recognize the passing of someone who is recognized or viewed as not just a political icon, but a business icon as well in Cayman. Someone who was regarded as one of Cayman's finest statesmen, a true gentleman, a wonderful father, and somebody that was a great community builder and a wonderful Caymanian to emulate. It was very sad to see his or hear about his passing, and I think all of my colleagues in cabinet, official and elected cabinet, would certainly join me in expressing our condolences to his family and loved ones. And I think I heard yesterday evening and last night, everywhere I went, there was a lot of expressions of condolences and sympathy to his family and their loss.
Thank you for those comments. It seems like we're still getting some feedback that you're coming in low. So I'm not really sure why that would be. You sound loud and clear to me. So
Yeah.
just trying to actually, you know what? Give me 1 second. I think I need to reroute. Since we've gone on radio, there's a few things that we got to do a little bit differently. So let me just change my audio. I think I might have an idea why. I've got to stick these in my ear. All right. So let's see if that's going to make a difference in how you are sounding. Thank you so much for those comments. And yes, a lot of people have indeed been expressing their condolences to the family. Will there be a state funeral? I'm supposing since he was a former
Yes,
embassy
I,
ambassador.
there haven't been. I don't think that they've gotten very far with any kind of plans as yet. But I imagine there will be. And I would say that the government has flown flags at half staff um, today in recognition of the passing of Mr. Benson.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't think they've gotten very far with arrangements, but yes, I would imagine that would be the case. He would have a state funeral, given the fact that he has had a very long, significant career in politics and has been at the highest levels in elected government.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, over the weekend, I did have an opportunity to see you at an event, and it was a tree planting event. And I only found out about it, believe it or not, that morning, about half an hour before. This is what I'm thankful that I live in Lower Valley because I'm like, well, I'm not too far from town. I'm not too far from the Eastern districts. So I was able to jump up and at it really quickly to get out there. And I caught some of your comments in relation to really sustainability, the environment, the importance of tree planting, and I was really touched by what you said about young people having hope for the future, but also a lot of questions about the future and some degree of uncertainty, about what it holds for them and how you were trying to reassure them as best that you could. So, could you share for listeners this evening a little bit about that event and why it was important for you to attend?
Sorry, I had to adjust the height of my chair there.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it was. It the We were planting trees basically to compensate for carbon emissions on the trip, the flights to to Scotland in
Hmm.
November last year to attend COP26, and I we had the DART organization that was providing um, some of the trees. I think they donated all the trees, and then we had a, a reinsurance company. Oh, gosh, I've forgotten the is
REM,
it
REM Re, I think is how they pronounce it.
uh, Aurium,
Yes,
Aurium, yes,
yes.
AUREM, AUREM,
REUM, I think. Yes.
yeah, Aurium, yeah, Aurium Re, that's correct. So yeah, so um, they were there. They represented the they were being represented by Miss Jackie Doke was representing Dart, and I think the other lady was Kathy, perhaps.
Stacy Ford from
Stacy,
REM.
Stacy.
Yeah.
There you go. Apologies,
It's okay.
apologies, Stacy. Um, too many things to remember today. So yes, we were there. We're planting these trees, and it was being done at the Botanic Park. We were planting in the blue iguana um, area,
Hmm.
and the blue those trees were the one that I planted at least was a broadleaf tree, the which is a local tree that has these red flowers and the leaves. The leaves have a pretty significant cultural aspect to them as well. They have been used in years past, dried and used effectively as um, sort of like a cleaning um, cloth. It has a very rough surface on the top, so it would
Hmm.
clean, and almost like a fine grade sandpaper.
Right.
So it's very interesting. And the flowers are actually edible as well. They're eaten by the blue iguanas. So
Mhm.
the tree will provide shade, and it will provide food to the iguanas in the blue iguana area of the botanic park,
Hmm.
the blue
Very
iguana
interesting.
recovery program area, I should say.
Hmm.
So yes, that was excellent, and it was great to have so many young people there, um, to have them participating, and to listen to some of their comments as well. Um, I learned so much from young people, um, and it as I was saying, um, that morning, the young people of today have a lot of expectations of us. Um,
Hmm.
they want us to basically look after their future. They want us to make sure that the legacy that we leave behind is a future that is at least as good, if not better, than what we had.
Hmm.
Um, that includes quality of life, as well as the specifically an environment that they can live in and enjoy as well. So that has been very clear for me. Um, and I think you may have been there when I was relating the story, about a young Caymanian young lady, that
Hmm.
attended COP26 in Glasgow, and I was having a conversation with her. She was sort of interviewing me, for a show, and I was having a discussion around policy issues that were relevant to sustainability and resiliency and environmental conservation. And she sort of got very impatient with me, and she said, "Oh, you're sounding just like a typical politician that we've heard up on the stage here, at COP26, talking about these issues." And I initially sort of bristled a little bit, and then I thought, you know what? Let me ask her what it is she expects to hear from me. And you know, to be honest, it was very straightforward stuff. She said, "I want to know that you are going to address environmental issues in the country. I want to know that you are going to promote renewable energy. I want to know that you are going to, you know, um, try to get the population to switch to electric vehicles. Sorry,
Hmm.
try to get them to switch over to um, electric public transportation rather than sorry."
Hmm. No problem. I know how it is sometimes when you when you're talking, your throat gets kind of a little tickle in there.
Sorry, Lord.
No worries.
Anyway, so she's, you know, I really took it to heart, because um, I thought, okay, I understand what she's saying. She's telling me,
Hmm.
stop talking at this high level about policy issues that don't sound to me like real tangible solutions,
Hmm.
and real tangible actions and efforts. So I was very grateful to her for basically reminding me that while we can talk about policy issues all day long,
Hmm.
um, until we start demonstrating to them that we're taking actions to help protect their future, um,
Hmm.
they're going to look at us with a cynical eye.
Right.
And I really appreciated that, and that's one of the benefits I get personally from talking with young people, because I think that sometimes they must feel. I mean, I feel it as well at times, that they must feel a sense of urgency, a sense of uncertainty,
Hmm.
and concern for their future. I mean, you know, if they're between 13 and 20, and they're thinking about their lives, they're thinking about the potential for them to grow up and have careers, and live in their community and enjoy their country, and have children to raise as well in the same way that they were. They must be thinking about all these things, and if they perceive that there's a potential risk, to that there may be things that we do or don't do now, which could negatively impact that, they must be concerned. And I'm very I'm conscious of the fact that in this day and age, young people can be very impressionable, and there are so many things that can affect them from a mental health perspective. And um, I think we always have to, while we're speaking the truth about things and being realistic, I do think that we've got to be positive. We've got to give them, always imbue hope in them, and demonstrate to them that we are taking actions, that we are doing things that are positive, things that are going to make um, not just their parents' lives today, but their lives better tomorrow as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It certainly gives them hope. I think that as she was trying to express, that it's just not about words, right?
Right.
Because I think we kind of feel that way about most politicians, that they do a lot of talking. And then when
Yeah.
we're sitting down waiting for the results, we're not sure that the results reflect all of the rhetoric that we heard. I mean, it's easy to over promise, but it's really a lot, much more difficult, I should say, to then be able to deliver on that. But it starts, I think, with the intent and certainly the desire to want to do the right thing,
Right.
because that's I think where it all change
Yeah.
really, quite
I,
honestly,
I
begins.
I think as politicians we have to have an understanding and an appreciation for the concerns of the people that we represent, the people of the
Mhm.
country, and we've got to have we got to be willing to listen to them and understand where they're coming from and understand whether they have any suggestions and take those suggestions on board if they don't. Otherwise, we've got to go out and find the solutions
Mhm.
to address their concerns. And if that means we have to roll up our sleeves and dig holes in the ground and plant trees, or we have to get out there and pick up garbage, or we have to go to people's houses and help them do things. That you have to be prepared to do any and everything that it takes to address the needs of your people and demonstrate to them that you are there with them, you believe in their concerns, you share their concerns, and you want to be you're a part of their community, and you want to be a positive force in their community and a positive force in their lives.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, I do have some footage. I'm just waiting for it to pull up here of you actually planting a tree. But in the meantime, we'll move the conversation along. Folks, please don't forget that this is your show. Good evening, Tommy. He's joining us, and he says that he always enjoys, he says it's a pleasure always listening to the premiere. Tommy's joining us from overseas. We've got Sandra Miller from Windsor
Thank you,
Park,
Tommy.
who's
Thank
joining
you,
us this
Sandra.
evening as well. And we have Vendem, who says, ¿Quién es esta persona que habla? So she was asking Ann Miller, who's this person that's speaking? My goodness, Vendem, I don't know where you live, but this is the premier of the Cayman Islands, the Honorable Wayne Panton. So good evening, and hopefully you're able to follow us along. I don't know if Spanish is the only language that you speak, but I was able to at least understand that much. So
Mhm.
yes, folks, we have Premier Panton here in the studio with us. You can join the conversation simply by dialing 936-2626, or you can send your comments on social media and your questions via WhatsApp as well. So more than one way to reach out to the premier this evening on the
There's
program.
something I got to say, Sandra. There's something I got to say, right? And that is,
Yes.
um, the expression that was popularized some time ago. I shouldn't say popularized because I'd say he almost coined it in very difficult circumstances.
Mhm.
You remember Charles Ebanks and when he caught that guy that was trying to rob
Oh,
him, and
yes.
he said, "Not today, Bobo."
Yes.
Well, today is my day, Bobo. Today is the day, Bobo. I'm on Bobo with you.
I know. I think the title for this, and by the way, this is a DMS station. There's still some people out there who are confused thinking it's my station. It isn't.
No, no,
I just have a few
it's your
shows on there.
time on
But
this station, so
yes, I
Ollie,
love
it's your
I
show. It's
love
the
the
Sanders
name.
show.
Yeah, I love the name. I love that it's part of who we are. It's so colloquial.
Yeah.
And the Bobo jokes are rolling in. And I've got to come up with something for a nice, CMR and Bobo t-shirt. So send those comments in as well. So Marshall is joining from North Carolina. Moya has a question. She says, do you have a potential rollout date for bringing the GG Ham back on board? And will you also include an option for people who may own land but can't get a house built on that land?
To be honest, I don't know exactly what the rollout date is for GGM, but that is something that we are. So what I've done very recently is I have. This was one of the things we did. One of the very significant things we did in Little Cayman when we had cabinet there last week was we created a housing task force, and it's a cross ministry group. So it was myself as Minister for Premier Minister for Sustainability, Deputy Premier Saunders, Minister J.E. Banks, and it also included Minister Andre E. Banks in terms of social development, as well as we included Mr. Kenneth Bryan, because in addition to having a very keen interest in the area, he obviously has a responsibility for transportation, and particularly public transport. And I think public transport is an issue which is very relevant to the housing as well, because you need to combine good public transport to place houses in particular locations where there's good access to that. So we have created this housing task force, and we're getting to work immediately, and we're taking a broad, holistic approach. Everything that affects the value of property, the ability of Caymanians to qualify, the ability of Caymanians to be able to purchase property and successfully continue to own it. And then on the other side, on the rental access side as well, because we know that there are some of our people who are not in a position to be able to buy, but they need to have shelter that is in a decent quality home that they can rent and they can get easy access to. So these are issues that we're getting into right away. I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks we'll be able to outline more specifically the various areas that we're specifically targeting. Work has been done in the past on the housing issue, where it has been and where it is useful. I don't see any reason to sort of reinvent the wheel. We stand on the shoulders of other people as well. So we're gonna take some of that on board. We're gonna have consultations with industry representatives in different areas. We'll probably also do some requests for proposals to do some analysis in terms of supply, in terms of demand. We don't want to just lick our fingers and stick them in the air and try to figure out what the issues are and what the challenges are. We want to do a proper assessment to ensure that we understand clearly what the current and what the medium term at least picture looks like, if not the longer term, so that when we design solutions that they're going to be meaningful, they're going to help people and make a difference in their lives.
Absolutely. And I can probably help with part of that question as well. The part with people who have land but can't afford to build on it. At I want to say not the last NRA meeting, because that one was Windsor Park, but the one before that, which was in Northside. Well, it was definitely the Northside meeting. They actually addressed this question, and the National Housing Trust representatives were there, including Mr. Ramos and other representatives on the board. And they did say that, yes, that is an option that is available to people. So I believe what you need to do is simply reach out to them, and then you are able to fill out the relevant application, and they'll provide you with the information. So folks, if you've got the land and you just don't have the resources to actually build on the land, the National Housing Trust has the ability to assist you with that as well. So for sure, contact the National Housing Trust, and they'll give you all the details on that. But there is an application process. And of course, you have to be prepared to go through the hoop, so to speak, whatever steps are required of you. to be able to qualify for these programs and get the necessary information as well.
Right,
So,
right.
someone is asking about the next coffee event at here in Savannah. So, this is your district event. They're asking, when is the next one going to be?
Hmm. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure we have actually scheduled one. But what I am looking forward to doing is having a public meeting. Um, we we were waiting for the numbers to improve our gathering restrictions, our gathering limits to improve,
Mhm.
to have a public meeting. I've done Zoom shows, for example, and they work fine, to a certain extent, but there's nothing like having a good public meeting. And
Mhm.
so we're planning, to schedule something around that. And if I know the ladies that work with me, they have already, sort of identified, a schedule for the coffee mornings. They just haven't told me yet, and they'll tell me when to show up, and to be there in person, and be able to respond to questions. So I've got a great team that I work with, and I'm really looking forward to, having more, public meetings, public engagement to discuss issues that are relevant to, the community, relevant to, the country as a whole. And yes, I do enjoy the coffee mornings, even though I don't drink coffee, but
Mhm.
there are sure a lot of people that enjoy a good cup of coffee in the morning. So it's always interesting and fun to engage in that way as well.
Absolutely. No, it's a good opportunity. I also don't drink coffee, but I think I'd probably be bouncing off the walls if I did. But it's always fun. I know the last event that you guys, it wasn't necessarily a coffee, but it was a breakfast event for Valentine's Day, with the seniors, and Miss Heather was there, and a good number of the seniors actually turned out to that event as well. So
Absolutely.
you have a Newlands community WhatsApp group.
Well, there are a number of WhatsApp groups. As you know, one of the things I need to try to do is switch over to a business. Um, I think anyway, that's the plan. Switch over to a
Mhm.
business account, because there's only so many you can put on one particular WhatsApp group. Otherwise, and I'm I think what we've been trying to do, and what I've done historically, is, created WhatsApp groups for different, sort of natural, community areas, um, and so whenever we have information that needs to be shared, it goes out on all the different groups.
Mhm.
So my office will send it, or sometimes I do it myself. If I have the time, I'll send it, and we'll distribute them to all the different groups. So I
Mhm.
think we probably have about five different WhatsApp groups that we utilize.
All right.
And then, of
So
course, sometimes it goes out by email as well, but mostly by
yes.
WhatsApp.
Okay, good evening to Liz. Good evening, Cheryl. Cameron says, love these shows that are Premier Speaks to the populace. Carmelie is also joining us. Good evening, Carmelie. And we have Miss Sonia who's joined in, said, great evening, CMR. Always a pleasure listening to these programs. Moya also is asking, as they are launching the ferries from the Newlands area to Camana Bay, will the public transport team look at at possibly adding a bus route from the Camana Bay area around the times of the ferries drop offs in the town area? This may entice more people to use the ferries to go from and to work instead of driving into town. Hmm.
Well, I think that sort of approach, could be very helpful. I have been planning to utilize the ferry, but I was trying to figure out if I could convince them or negotiate with them to stop at Georgetown Yacht Club first, since that's going to be closer to my office than
Right.
going down to Kamana Bay or Kamana Bay. But
Yes.
I think we all, certainly, I believe in setting an example, and participating in these things, and supporting these kinds of operations that I think do a good. They provide a great service. I mean, if you can be out on the water on a nice day and avoid some of the stress of being in traffic, why not? You know, do it. I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Someone said, listening to your show, can you let Wayne know about the NRA meetings, dates for Ms. Heather, and that it's likely to occur after Easter. Okay. So I think that this is a message from Mr. Alric Lindsay, just basically saying that he's looking at somewhere between the 11th and the 17th of April to no, sorry, the 19th and 22nd to avoid the Easter break. And of
Post
course,
the weekend. Yeah.
yes, so he's just confirming that soon the meeting is going to be coming to the Newlands area. So hats off to the National Roads Authority folks. In case you've been missing these, almost every week, this week that they missed the one in West Bay, but almost every week they've been having these community meetings starting out in East End, and they've been going from each constituency and informing the public of all of the ongoing road projects, both the ones that are currently happening. Of course, Grand Harbor roundabout was just completed. What is planned in the future? We see the huge expansion that's further up close to, what is that area called by the horse stables? I guess that's the tail end of the Linford Pearson Highway going into the
That's going out to the Bobby Thompson way
Bobby
roundabout.
Thompson roundabout, right? So that has begun. That's going to be a massive project and expansion there. And so these meetings are very, very useful. We have been live streaming them if you're not able to attend, and you're able to get your questions and so forth answered. So they're still continuing their journey through all the districts so that people can have an opportunity to come out. The police have also been joining them, at least on that one occasion. The National Housing Trust jumped in as well. And I think that they said they were going to reach out to planning, because some of the questions that people were asking them were not really related to NRA responsibilities, but were more directly linked to planning. So good initiative.
No, it's good. And it's good to be able to combine those with some of the constituency meetings for politicians as well, because those people who come out then have the opportunity to get a lot of wide-ranging information that's relevant to what's happening in their community, what they can expect, the timelines, things that impact their quality of life, questions that they may have that they haven't been able to get an answer to. We're going to have people there who can answer those questions. Those who present on behalf of the police, and oftentimes it's the commissioner himself. I think he's certainly to be commended for the level of engagement that they have with the public, and having Mr. Howard, who is the managing director of the NRA there, who speaks extremely well, very articulately, he speaks in a way which cuts through any of the technical jargon and gets down to the specific details of things that people care about. I think they all do a great job with their presentations, and I think is very, very helpful for all community members who attend. So yes, Alric, we're looking forward to having you and Mr. Howard and anybody else from the NRA, the police, and planning, and whoever else can join us for some of the meetings in Newlands and Savannah later in April.
All right, Cameron is here with a question, is asking about the implementation of proper district councils before the next administration. So is this something that is going to happen?
Yes. So before the next administration, that would suggest that we have 3 years to deal with it. I don't think it's going to take that long. We have. Let me back up. I have had meetings with the chair of the Constitutional Commission, which is, as you know, one of the commissions set out in our Constitution, which is designed to help support democracy in the country and the development of the Constitution. It is as we learned from recent court cases, it's been described as the branches and a live tree, which continues to grow and change and evolve, reflecting the views and interests of the people of the country. So I've met with that chairman to discuss specifically Section 119, which is this district council provisions of the Constitution, and I am going to have a further meeting with him fairly shortly. But this is an issue that I want to take forward and make sure that we bring forward the changes to legislation in order to properly implement district councils. One of the questions right now is around, do we, when this was originally contemplated, we did not have single member constituencies. We had five. We had the six districts, and the question at the time was, or the expectation at the time was, you have a district council for each of those districts. But now we have 19 constituencies, and the question is, do you have one for each of the 19 constituencies, or can you aggregate along the lines of the previous districts, the national districts? So these are questions that need to be fleshed out, and I expect for us to be working on that as a government in the coming weeks and months. So I have the expectation that before the end of this year, we'll be bringing legislation or an amendment, probably a new bespoke piece of legislation which specifically deals with this. Another issue that we've got to work out and find common ground on is, how do the representatives on the district, or the advisory councils, how do they get in position? Do we have some sort of rudimentary election process, or are they appointed? There are views on both sides. So these are things we have to work through, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to progress this and have it done before the end of this year.
All right. Thanks very much.
Not just the end of this administration, just the end of this year.
Yes. You guys are coming up on your 1-year anniversary, and I don't know if you heard this or not, but here at CMR, we're going to be doing a report card on all of you, as well as the backbenchers, because some of them are failing. So we'll probably chat about that maybe the next time that you're on. So
you're part of the you're an essential part of the the media environment in Cayman, and that's part of your job to make sure that you remind us if we're not achieving what we need to achieve, and remind us that there are the areas that perhaps we need to have focus on, as well as the things we are focusing on.
Absolutely. So Cameron says we really can't take another horse trading fiasco. The division and inequality is taking its toll. So I don't know how individuals will be chosen for these councils, but I guess as we get closer to hearing a little bit more about the law, there should be a consultation period, and we'll probably, Cameron,
there will be.
Find out more about it then.
Yep.
Stacy's joining us. Good evening, Stacy. She says, "Good evening, Mr. Premier. My question for you is, what are the laws in the Cayman Islands for people that abuse workers on work permits? Example, domestic workers. I'm a victim, and I was abused for 2 years."
Well, first of all, good evening, Stacey, and thank you for the question. I guess it depends on what you mean by abuse.
Sorry, we've got a caller who needs to turn down their radio, so I've just muted them in the interim. Sorry, go ahead.
So there are various provisions in perhaps different laws that may be relevant depending on exactly what sort of abuse we're talking about. If the abuse is, they're not being treated properly in terms of their rights under the labor law, then obviously it's provisions of the labor law which would be relevant there, and they have the right to, to go and speak to the labor office, labor personnel. If there are other things like, offenses against the person, and you will know what I mean by that, Sandra.
Yes.
You can elaborate if you want to. But if it's that sort of scenario, then clearly there are provisions which help to protect in that sort of respect as well. I think that too often we do have situations where domestic workers are not treated properly, and I feel quite strongly that there needs to be a recognition that domestic workers, and this is quite apart from, or this is assuming that people are good people and they've got a good attitude. They're not sort of misbehaving themselves in some way. Um, but I feel strongly that people should not try to take advantage of other people. If you need someone to work with you, to assist you, understand and recognize that they're people as well, and they need sometimes time off. They need rest at times, and they need to be treated fairly and appropriately, and be appropriately compensated as well. Over the years, we've had too many situations and too many complaints suggesting that that there are those who might take advantage of others who perhaps are not in a position, not in a strong bargaining position, and not in a position to complain. And I believe strongly in terms of social justice, and I think that we should treat people as we would want to be treated.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Jonathan says put Canadians first, and first, once and for all. Cameron says she's waiting for me to go to East End and have a good sit down with Isaac. Yeah, Isaac and I have already had a sit down. Child, you missed it because it wasn't necessarily for public consumption. But the other day when I was at the Culture Day festivities and celebrations at the Government Administration Building, I was pleased to see an elderly gentleman there doing some rope work, and he was making little bracelets and all sorts of stuff. And he was very, very interesting to speak to. And it turns out that was actually Isaac's dad,
Yep.
because at one
Mhm.
point Isaac came and checked on him and made sure that he was okay. And I was like, oh, that's your dad. Okay. So listen, we're all Caymanians, folks, at the end of the day, and we all want what is in the best interest of the people of this country. And I think as long as we're working towards that common goal, we put aside anything else. So Dr. Tahir joining us this evening. He says, good evening, Premier. Hello, Sandra. Why are doctors registered under institutional licenses not allowed to apply for job in government hospitals? Even if we apply, then they say principal license holders will be selected, whereas institutional license registered doctors are serving the Cayman community with the best services, mainly Health City, Total Health, and by allowing us to work in government hospitals at any salary, we want to serve Cayman community with our best services. So this is quite an interesting question from Dr. Tahir Khan. And it goes back to a discussion that we had a number of years ago. I want to say even back to 2009, that there is this difference in the medical profession between what's known as an institutional license facilities. I think he's obviously identified that Total Health and Health City fall under that umbrella. And then there are other physicians or other facilities who get what was the alternative? Principal license holder. So he's saying, why is there a difference, and why can't the institutional physicians work in the government hospital? I'm not sure if that's really a question for you, but
Yeah, well, Sandra, I usually know. I don't know everything about everything, but I know a little bit about a lot of different things.
Mhm.
This is one of those cases. I know a little bit about this. I certainly would. The conversation would benefit more having my colleague, Minister Turner,
Mhm.
involved, who would understand these issues better. But in general, the institutional licenses, the different grades of licenses were created. I think by legislation, it might have been around 2009 or 2010, in order to facilitate, I think, the
I
prob-
think it would have been earlier because it was done to facilitate the opening of Health City, as I recall.
yeah, but I think Health City was, well, yeah, you're right. You're right. Wait a minute. I don't remember exactly when it was.
Mhm.
I think it would have been, I don't know. I don't remember the time frame, to be perfectly honest. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it was done for. And they were trying to distinguish between, those doctors that were qualified to work in a similar institution in India, versus the typical requirements for doctors and medical staff in other facilities in Cayman.
Mm-hmm.
I think subsequent to that, other other operations have been given institutional licenses as well, um, and they are there is also, I think, an ongoing process where there are businesses that are applying. So I don't know. I really can't answer specifically the
Mm-hmm.
question that the individual posed. But yes, there are distinctions. And if you are working for an institution and recognized under the provisions relevant to the institutional license, you may not then be able to qualify to or be recognized as being qualified to practice
Mm-hmm.
with other institutions in the medical arena who are not similarly possessing these institutional licenses. That's about as close as I can get to giving you a definitive answer in relation to that at this point. I
And this
don't
has
know.
been a bit of a controversial area. So, Dr.
It is.
Tahir Khan, if you could probably, I'm just having a look at our website. I know that we did a number of, I think, video interviews dating back to 2020 and maybe even before on this, because at the time, the progressive government was actually amending the health practice law to allow institutional physicians, or at least the institutions, to have much more freedoms in terms of how they operate. And there was some opposition to that from local physicians. And Doctors Hospital is actually suing government over institutionally registered medical practitioners. And that story is up from July of 2021. So I think if you go to the website and you just type in institutional doctors, for those of you who are interested about what this is all about,
Mhm.
perhaps you could get some background information. Now, someone made the observation. They say because institutional licenses are tied to the institution, and you can't expect to come into the Cayman Islands under that umbrella and then be able to stay longer because you get hired into the government system. So the idea is that you're here for a number of years under this institutional license as a physician, and then you kind of get rolled out and other people are permitted to come in. So this other person also says because medical certifications obtained in India aren't recognized by the Health Practice Commission to be licensed to practice here. So there is a difference as well
Yeah.
in terms of the different types of licensing procedures. Now, you can, Dr. Tahir, if it's really important to you, because I've seen it done. I've seen Dr. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name now, but you can actually go away to the UK, Australia, any of the countries that will allow you to go through a certain procedure, and you can convert that institutional license into, just the regular license as a physician. And I've
Mhm.
seen, oh, I forget his name now. He's an amazing pianist, actually, but he's also a physician. He actually did that. He left. He used to work at Health City. He left and went away and did whatever he needed to do, and then came back and now works for the HSA. So there's a path to do it, but I guess you just need to find out what that path is. So a question coming
Yeah,
through.
that's interesting. And today is apparently International Doctors Day.
Yes, yes, we were
So
we were saying that this morning.
a very
So
relevant question today.
yes, we were
As
mentioning
we
that in the morning show.
recognize and celebrate doctors, whether they work for institutions or non-institutions.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
we do have an amazing healthcare community in this country, and I think the people of this country benefit greatly from that.
All right, so we do have a caller who wants to join the program by phone. So let's go ahead and dial them in. And then we have a question that's coming via WhatsApp as well, but let's take the phone call first. Good evening and welcome to Premier Access.
Yes,
Hi.
Good evening.
Yeah, I think you might need to turn
Hello?
off the radio in the background or whatever that feed is.
Hello?
Yes, evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hi.
You.
Can Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
How can we help?
Good night, ma'am.
Yes, good evening.
Um, I would like to ask you, ma'am, why people that works in all the government department allow to give people to run around and don't want to do the job, miss?
So, why do people who work in government departments give customers a runaround?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any
And
specific
why they are not doing the
examples?
job, ma'am?
Any specific examples that you want to share
Like
with
all
us?
government department,
All government
all,
departments? That's a lot of
all,
people.
yes, ma'am.
Oh, sounds like you've
But
had some
like in the
bad
company, but you
experiences.
see, we go to yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I just want to, cause it's a talk show, so I want
Mm-hmm.
to find out why all even when you go anywhere, they give you a hard time, man.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
Why is it? Why if they want to do the job, they're not supposed to be working there.
right. That probably was a good
Hello.
question for, yes, sir. I was going to say that probably was a good question for France Manderson, who was on the show on Monday because he is in charge of the civil service. But I guess the premier can maybe address it as well. Thank you so much, caller.
Thank you very much. I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would say that you know it is not my experience at all that the civil servants aren't responsive um, and do not do their job. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I found that civil servants are people who are dedicated to serving the people of the country. They, the deputy governor has implemented a lot of programs to try to measure the level of engagement, the level of satisfaction, and I think the responses have been quite high, and the responses have been very positive. Now these are like, for example, when you come in to the airport, is the easiest example I can think of. You come into the airport, you see those little signs that you can just slap them and indicate whether it's a cross face, a slight smile, a big smile, um, you know, and you're indicating what you think of people
Mm-hmm.
and the service they've been provided by civil servants. And I think generally it's quite a high response rate and quite a positive response rate. Now, are there times when people may have had a bad day? I suppose that is possible, but it's more likely a situation where they're trying to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to perform um, their role within the requirements of their job description. They're within the requirements of the law, and there are times, obviously, when they have to give bad news to people and say, "This you don't qualify for this, or you don't qualify for that, or I wish I could help you here, but we're not able to do this." Um, those scenarios are understandably scenarios where people get upset.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that perhaps this is one of those cases, but I will say this as well. He mentioned NEU specifically. Now that falls under my colleague Minister Andre
Mm-hmm.
Ebanks, and I can tell you that there is nobody, no minister who has been more committed to making improvements in that area and trying to ensure that the people of the country who need support, who need access to government assistance through NEU, is able to do so in a very dignified and efficient way. He is working hard in that area to make improvements, to really make a world class a world make it a world class service, and make the people of the country who need those services and who have to engage with them feel that they have been respected and they have been assisted. Again, it's going to be a situation sometimes where they can't assist everybody. There are times when people want to have assistance on something, perhaps they don't qualify for that assistance. Perhaps, after discussion, it's clear they really don't necessarily need it. But I can tell you that, the people in the NEU and the minister, from the minister down, from a policy perspective, and the desire to help the people of the country, that is all completely aligned, and significant changes are being made in those areas to address that. He is a minister. In the past, we've had ministers who have been responsible for these areas, who haven't visited those offices in the entire term. I can tell you that is not the case with this minister. This minister is hands-on, and he will go in. He will meet with people. He will check in, because he wants to know exactly what's happening and what's going on, and what the issues are, and how we can help to change the delivery of service and the access to service, so that we help the people in this country as efficiently and effectively as possible.
All right, we do have another caller, and Jean Scott says, you say that, but you've not been there. So good evening, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good evening. Thanks for taking my call, and good evening to the Premier.
Hi.
Good evening.
Evening. We recently got the release of the from the statistics from the survey. I'm going to say survey, but from the stats that was going around about the numbers of persons residing in Cayman, and the Caymanians versus non-Caymanians. And
the population census, preliminary report. Yeah.
Thank.
Yeah.
And I also want to relate it to Mr. Benson of blessed memory, who passed, who we learned was very instrumental in bringing forward, or bringing to the table of the LA the Caymanian protection law.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to ask you is, does your government have any plans to address any of these issues, to look at it? Because, to be honest with you, Mr. Premier, when I look at the stats and when we look at what's happening here, I'm not anti-no nation. I do realize we need people to build our economy. I need people to be living here. But I also am cognizant of the fact that it seems like we will soon be in a position for, if persons that actually come here to work and actually reaches to their 9 years term limit and are eligible to apply for status, there's very little that will stop them becoming a Caymanian, eventually getting PR, and then naturalized. My question is to the government is, what are we going to put in place? And as I said, I'm not anti, but I'm just looking at it realistically for the view for my children and my children's children, Sandra's children, everybody's children. So in other words, what we need to look at is that every person that we grant Cayman status to, or a person that is employed and has reached 9 years and is eligible to apply for status, based on the point system in place now, that person, chances are, will probably get status, which means he or she gets status, their wife gets, or their dependents get status, which would maybe a spouse and 2 children. That means that our children are then competing with these, and nothing is wrong with competition, because I do believe that nothing should be given free. We should earn that right. But I'm saying to you, the point is, what is then going to be? Our children then are competing. Sandra's child is competing to get into the schools. She can't find a place yet. You understand? Competing to get into the
caller,
schools,
just one
scholarship.
Sorry, caller, just one quick second for me. Just for our radio listeners, just 30 seconds left, so we do have to end that program. So if you want to continue listening, you just hold on one second, honey. But if you want to continue, folks, listening to the conversation, you can join us on YouTube and Facebook. We almost have 100 people tuned into those 2 this evening as well. So I'm just going to play a little outro music. Premier, just hang tight for 1 second for me. So again, our radio listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Premier Access. We are here every other Wednesday. So not next week Wednesday, but then the following Wednesday, the Premier will be back with us from 7 till 8 o'clock on Bobo 89.1 FM.
The Cold Hard Truth now has your Premier access with Premier Panton.
Hello everyone, this is Wayne Panton. Come and join me on Cayman Mar Road's Premier Access every other Wednesday at 7 p.m. for a frank and open Q&A session. I'm here to answer your questions about the issues that concern you the most. Tune into YouTube and Facebook Live on Wednesday. We will see you there.
Full transparency, answering your questions, down to earth, accountable, and accessible to who matters. You. Don't miss Premier Access on the Cold Hard Truth, spilling the tea like no one else.
All right, folks, we are back. Yeah. We just had to end the radio live stream. So caller, yes.
So what I'm saying is that the truth is that then we are then competing in our small country for everything. So I am asking the Premier, is there any plans? Because I mean, like I said, competition is good. Mm-hmm. It brings out the best in all of us. But I am saying, I don't know. I think it might have been a previous administration that actually came up with the point system and whatever we have now in place. But I'm saying is something needs to be looked at what we presently have in place, because if not, I think that we may end up with an issue that we have more than enough of and eventually they would become Caymanians too. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking that, because I remember I had friends that I went to school with that their parents had PR, but when they became the age of 18, they had to apply on their own. Now that's not the case. Now those children that were born here, got PR, PR actually just transfers them back at age 18. So that's already, so in other words, you're having multiple generations that are becoming Caymanians automatically. And I'm saying to you, is something needs to be done. You can't just walk in through the door. You have to earn that right. Because in other words, you may be given PR, let's say hypothetically to someone's child, mm-hmm. that maybe when they were under the age of 18, they were upright citizens. Mm-hmm. But when they became 18 or 19, or when they became maybe they got their right to PR, they passed over to them automatically at 18. But when they're 21, they're actually on NAU, they're in the prisons, and there's nothing we can do. Mm-hmm. It is Premier, Ms. Hill, mm-hmm. There is something that the government needs to look at. Mm-hmm. And as I said, when we're looking at, remember Mr. Benson, and this occasion that we're at now, he mm-hmm. was the one that actually looked at the Cayman Protection Law. And right now, somebody needs to look at it. Mm-hmm. Because we are in if we did not buy land for our children or things to pass on, all of those developments that are being developed are not for us because we can't afford it. Yeah. Caymanians can't even afford rent. Mm-hmm. As I said, this is not an anti-expat. I'm not calling out no nation. I'm not mm-hmm. calling out any profession. I am just merely saying that maybe we need to go back to term limits, or maybe we just need to go back to where the fact is people stayed here, they were not given any right to permit to status. We need to look at it. Mm-hmm. I don't know who could take the bull by the horn, because I think that everybody don't want to take it because, of course, of being reelected. Maybe some people may feel that way, but as far as I am concerned, when mm-hmm. I cast my vote the next 4 years or next 2.5 years, my vote will be on behalf of my children and the future that whoever is standing for election will be looking to provide for my children. That mm-hmm. is what I'm looking for. And this here, I think mm-hmm. that is something that you need. Everybody, every Caymanian need to be thinking about it. Mm-hmm. I have foreign friends, mm-hmm. but I don't think because they have reached 9 years that they and most of these people will qualify because they're earning the salary. They can pass the test. They're probably coming from a nation that the numbers aren't high. So some of the points are going to be, they're just going to get the points.
Mhm.
Also,
Yeah.
also the Cayman professionals. My son that comes back with his degree, he will be competing against the person who came to Cayman. I know of a scenario now that a gentleman is concerned about his daughter-in-law ever becoming partner in a firm
Mhm.
because the company has people employed there that have applied for PR, and chances are they will be granted it. So his daughter-in-law will never become a partner.
Mm.
It's something we need to think about.
All right,
Mr.
caller.
Premier, and
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
very much.
I will show you my face and tell you I was the one that called about that.
All
Well,
right.
I think I
Thank you.
recognize your voice anyway, but that's you can talk to me when you see me next.
Yeah, but I mean, as I said, this is not. I'm not tossing it at you because I think that
No,
this
I understand, but I
this
want I
this
want you
mess
on.
you all inherited.
Yeah. No,
But
Yeah, well, they
unfortunately,
inherited a lot. Trust me.
yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if you choose to
Yes.
answer it, but I had to put it out there.
Thank you, my
Okay.
dear. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay,
You're
have a
welcome.
good one.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
That was
Well,
she
I
had a
mean,
lot on her mind there.
oh geez, yeah. That was a real download of fear, concern, frustration,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, worried about the future for their children,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of very legitimate concerns and, and
Mm-hmm.
and legitimate issues. And
Absolutely.
yes, we are, as a government, we are concerned about all these issues. I mean, she's put together quite a few issues there. Not just immigration related. Some of it is about housing that we were talking about earlier as well. It's about opportunities for people to have a fulfilling life and live their best lives within their own country. And
Absolutely.
it is. I want to say that the world is full of uncertainty um, right now. There is there's fear, there's concern about what's happening in the Ukraine and the aggressive move made by Putin and Russia. Um, the impacts are being felt here because of the commodity price impacts, the cost of living. But in Cayman, we have um, a, a beautiful God-given place to live in. We're still able to move around freely. We have relative safety and a harmonious quality of life. Generally, not everybody is perfect, but we think we're in a relatively good position here. The concerns that people have um, are understandable. It's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
We have developed, as a country, we've developed an economy which is bigger than Caymanians are able to fully participate in. So if you look at the census numbers, they'll tell you that I think it's about 50. I want to say it's about 56%
Mm-hmm.
of the workforce are non-Caymanian.
Mm.
And when you have a scenario like that, that in itself creates a feeling of claustrophobia in your own social claustrophobia, a feeling of marginalization potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. These are things that have to be managed. But I also think that people need to have a broad perspective on it as well. You know, there historically there have been concerns about Caymanian opportunities. It is never correct to say that all these people who are here are going to get PR, and all of them that get PR are going to move on to Caymanian status. Certainly, there probably is a higher percentage of those who get PR who eventually move on to status. But I don't know personally what the percentage is for, and it's something that I want to know because I think it's a useful statistic to understand. But I don't know specifically how many of those people who are transient, who are on work permits, eventually qualify for permanent residency. I don't think it certainly is anywhere near, um, perhaps not even the majority of those. And the reason I say that is statistically, I do know one, I'm relatively sure about one statistic, which is that the average work permit holder remains on island somewhere in the region of, um, I think it's less than 5 years, or roughly 5 years, 4 to 5 years. Um, I need to catch up and be certain about that statistic, but it is a lot less than what it would take to qualify to apply to get PR. Uh,
Mm.
so if that's the average, um, then certainly it's less than a majority who are able to apply for PR, and then there is only going to be a certain percentage of those applicants for PR who qualify to get PR, and then I would say there's a higher percentage of those who get PR who end up going on to obtain Cayman status. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Um, I understand exactly what the concerns are, and my
Mhm.
colleagues understand, and we want to look at the situation because the numbers are concerning for people when it's announced that there's thousands and thousands of people who've had Caymanian status over the last several years. Um, it is a concern, and we do want to have a review of the point system to see where we can perhaps tighten those up to ensure that there's a better result, a better structure that works, um, fairly across the board. I think it's always appropriate for us at different points in our existence to have a look, to see whether the mechanisms that we have put in place are serving our interests, are serving the people of the country, and are serving even our economy. Um,
Mhm.
so these are things that we're definitely going to be engaging in, and the analysis on the census survey is what has been released. I should say the information that's been released so far is just a preliminary analysis. Um, I believe my colleague, the deputy premier, said to us, said to me a few weeks ago that it was going to be um, another month or two, perhaps, before we actually get the definitive conclusions and the full analysis from the census, which was carried out starting in October last year. Um, that information is going to be very, very useful for us, uh,
Mhm.
which will it'll tell us, what the issues are, and perhaps where we need to be focused, and perhaps even how we need to address some of the issues that are causing concern, so much concern, in the minds of our people. Um, I think um, we also will benefit from um, the development which we're looking at right now. And this is a part of that ongoing analysis. The population growth models, which will tell us, what is our population likely to be in 3 years time, 5 years time, 10 years time. That is essential data which is going to help us make decisions which will better serve our own people in this
Mhm.
country, as well as um, essentially tell us what kind of services government may need to be providing, what the economy may require. So these are all things that we have to be doing. We have to it has to be a joined up and clear um, data analysis, to make sure we're very clear on what is that needs to be done. We are
Great.
not going to sit by and
Mhm.
allow the interests of Caymanians to be marginalized or diminished in any way. That
Yeah.
is very clear. We are about promoting the interests of Caymanians first. That has generally been the position even from Mr. Benson's days, even prior to the 1972 Caymanian Protection Law. That certainly codified that. And while the name was changed to the immigration law, um, many of the provisions still remain in some form or another, that were originally conceived as being provisions which were relevant to protect and promote the interests of an indigenous Caymanian population. So we are only looking at strengthening those, not diminishing those in any way. We are looking at making sure that Caymanians have opportunities, but we have to recognize this as well. The government, the policymakers can only do so much. Um, our people have to be willing to engage, to be involved in taking opportunities for training and learning and career development and having a great attitude, being a part of a team, contributing, and you know, thinking about how this all supports their families as well. These are things that, we have to, in some cases, we have to teach people and help people get to that point. So it's a range of things that we need to be taking on board. It's a range of information we need to be looking at. But I want the caller to understand that we are not going to sit back and see Caymanians being prejudiced, see Caymanians losing opportunities, and do nothing about it. But it is also quite easy for people to speculate and say this is happening all the time. I don't think it's happening all the time. There are times it does happen, and trust me, if we have clear evidence that it has happened, we are not going to sit by and tolerate that kind of prejudice and that kind of bias against our own people. We will do something about it. We will take action to remedy that situation. But by and large, most people, most Caymanians are hardworking people, are very keen about learning and about life, and in some cases, lifelong learning, and doing a great job in serving the interests of their employer and their families. And in some cases, their attitude is, look, I don't need any help. I'm doing just fine. But there are specific cases where we've got to put our foot down, and we've got to make it known. And if that means picking up a phone and saying, hey, this isn't working right. It won't be the first time, and it ain't going to be the last time.
All right, we do have another caller, and then we have a few more comments, and I'm mindful of the time. We do need to start wrapping up here. Lavana, while we're getting that caller back, says it shouldn't be so easy to get Cayman papers. We can't go everywhere and get citizenship in just a few years. Cameron also, good evening, caller.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you.
Yes, wonderful. You're on with Premier Panton.
Oh, hi, Mr. Panton. Hi, good night. How are you, sir?
I am good, dear. How are you? Good evening.
Good evening, sir. It's Adonza Hides Web, and it's actually a pleasure to be able to speak to you. And I just got a few concerns, and the concern is to do with health insurance, sir. I'm just kind of like wondering, when, someone that actually is elected that will actually try to pick up the insurance and try to get some proper insurance for the people of the Cayman Islands, sir. Because, we just all, people, all they can actually afford is actually the SHIC plan, because, if they have retired, they don't, they're not able to get on a proper plan. They can only get on the SHIC plan.
Yes.
And, that's a really serious issue in Cayman, because anybody who becomes ill, they're very limited to getting help. They're very limited to getting health care. And it actually falls on the government, whatever they can do to help a person. And, that's a big burden for the Cayman Islands for whoever gets sick and doesn't have insurance.
Yes.
And I'm going to try to throw a challenge at you, sir, to see if, make these islands really proud as you being the premier to tackle this and to complete it, sir. Because everybody that get in, that is their, that's what they're going to do, health insurance. And nobody does it, sir. So I'm just going to challenge you, sir, and ask you if you could please get a department that could really focus on this and get this completed, please, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So you'd like to see better coverage, better affordable coverage options.
Yeah, I mean, you have Caymanians. I was speaking to a Caymanian just on Tuesday. She is retired and she has no health insurance. You have people that go to the Georgetown Hospital and they are turned away because they have no health care. And this is one of the biggest issues that we're facing in the Cayman Islands. It's one of the biggest issues.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I want to tell you that this is a significant issue.
It is.
As you alluded to, it's not even something that's unique to Cayman. It's a challenge across the world, really, particularly where you have a society that is to some extent aging. Insurance typically works in the way of those having a large number of younger, healthier people who are able to pay premiums, which help to support coverage and policies for people who are older and who may be more susceptible and may have certain types of illnesses. And it's a challenge for us here. We don't have a market that is big enough, and we rely on statistics and on risk calculations that are conducted for bigger populations as well. And the other thing is, I suppose, is we do have a very sort of westernized kind of diet. So to some extent, perhaps some of those calculations are more reflective of the reality for us. But one of the things that we are trying to do is we've just had recent discussions around our local government-owned insurance company, Synico, Cayman Islands National Insurance Company, around Synico looking at designing new policies which can give a broader range of coverage and are more affordable, or relatively affordable. It is very difficult for some people today to even get coverage. We also have the issues of people who have pre-existing conditions that they perhaps when they retire, they may lose the health insurance they had while they were employed, and then when they try to get health insurance through directly through an individual policy, they may run into issues with pre-existing conditions not being covered. So we recognize these issues, and we're looking at different ways of addressing them. And we have had discussions around utilizing the Cayman Islands National Insurance Company to broaden the level of coverage and try to come up with a way through actuarial calculations to get policies that are more affordable. And this is something that this was a recent discussion, and this is moving forward. So I am hopeful that we will be able to accomplish some of these things in the coming months, so that we have policies and products that are available to better help our people. But I also want to say is that our local HSA where people need health coverage, they don't typically just turn people away and say, sorry, we're not going to help you if you're in need. And government typically steps up and helps people who are medically indigent, and who don't have any other option. Where that is a problem is that typically ends up being a situation where people have become um, critically ill. Uh,
Mhm.
that is that's not what we want. We want, and this is where the wellness aspect of the health and wellness ministry comes in. We want to have a population who are healthier, and who have the ability to have their medical needs addressed prior to becoming, a critical problem, a life threatening issue.
Mhm.
And so this conversation and this particular issue exists in every country that I've ever seen around the world. But it's a problem for us, and it's up to us to find a solution.
Mhm.
Right. And I want you to understand that it is something that we are extremely cognizant of, and we are actively looking for ways to address some of these issues, to help, because we understand clearly that, you know the the growth in the cost, the money that is spent by government in helping people who are in dire medical circumstances, is really unsustainable. It has been growing considerably. I remember one particular um, account, I will call it, that when I was previously a minister, I used to t- look at it, and it was, we get reports that at the end of the year, um, you know 16 or 17 million dollars had been spent in addition to that, when they had budgeted 11 million. um, Today, that one account, and that's not all the accounts that are utilized, to track costs for government, but that one particular account is something like $32 million, normally. So in the 5 or 6 years or 5 years since I've been 6 years, let's call it, since I've been in government,
Mhm.
um, it's more than doubled, or approximately doubled. So it tells me that if it's going to double every 5 years, you know, it's going to be an unsustainable problem. And that's not the only account, as I said, that's used to track what government spends to help our people with um,
Mhm.
medical issues. Um,
Wow.
so these are challenges, not only for us as politicians who want to help our own people, who want to see them live a good life and a healthy life, um, but they're also threats to the financial soundness and viability of the country as a whole. We've got to get some degree of control of this and find ways of addressing these and lowering some of these costs, um, and ensuring that we don't have this unsustained level of growth in these costs, because at some point it starts to impact our ability to provide other services that are
Mhm.
also necessary and needed
Exactly.
to the people in the country.
All
So
right. Thank you,
thank
caller.
you for raising this issue. I hope that I have indicated that this is an issue that we are already considering, thinking about, looking at ways to address it. And as I've said, we have recently had a quite extensive discussion about how cynical can be utilized to try to address this. One of the challenges is to make sure that anything that we do is a net positive contributor, rather than something which ends up distorting, for example, the insurance market and reducing options for other people. We don't want to create a situation where um, other players in the market, other service providers in the market, decide that because of what we're doing, they can't be bothered to participate. We've lost in the last few years a significant insurance provider,
Mhm.
and we need to have the right number in order to have a competitive environment. But for us, in terms of the tools that we have available to us, we are going to try to work on those to provide solutions and try to make them work for the benefit of our people.
All right. Thank you so much.
Can I ask just one last question?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. So when all of this is sorted, would it be, because you're going to be doing it under Cynical, would it be that, that people will just be able to use the Health Services Authority, or they can actually branch out and go to their own doctor? Maybe we can look at that, and that, you're not just limited that, you have to go to the health services to do this.
Right. So, right. I mean, and that's an issue. That's an issue that's recognized as well. And the idea is we would have we'd have an agreed network of providers who could be utilized. I mean, obviously, a part of this issue is controlling the costs of medical services as well.
Right.
And that is an issue that we need to keep an eye on and try through policy levels to try to control that as well. I mean, you can go to a country which is fairly close to us and have one type of service, and come here and have the same service here, and it'll cost you a lot more. It might cost you twice as much. So the challenge for us is, what steps and what policy levers do we have open to us to positively impact the cost of the provision of healthcare services in the country. It is an issue, and we need to bring all of the information that we have: census, population model, improving people's health through wellness steps and initiatives. All these things come together to help us control our costs, control our need to access costs, expensive health care. So these are things that we have to work on, and we've certainly had discussions around this, and we're moving forward. So let's give us some time to work on these, and we'll push forward at a variety of levels to try to address these. Are you going to see something that looks like an instant change, a sea change? No, I think it'll take time, but we have to do the work necessary in order to start influencing comes in a positive way.
It will take time. We just need to work on it, right?
Yes, we're committed to doing that.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you, dear. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
You do the same. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, dear. Bye-bye. So, folks, the questions are coming in hot and heavy. And, of course, we did promise the premiere 1 hour, and we're already well over that. But maybe just a few more comments. So some people are saying the answer, both Carol and Cameron have said this, that the answer lies in tax and taxation, but nobody wants to talk about that. So it says the NHS has issues, yes, but it's free because there's a national insurance tax. But then you're going to have people complaining about that, they're not able to pay the taxes in order to get the free healthcare. So maybe you're taking from Peter to pay Paul in a situation like that. I'm not sure if that's quite the right fix for us in terms of what people are willing to accept. Some people are saying free healthcare for everybody over 60, but I know I've said this a million times. If I've said it once, there's no such thing as a free meal, literally.
Well, that's right. I mean, everything costs money. And yes, we may be successful in influencing the lowering of costs in certain areas, and maybe and ideally in a lot of areas, but the fact is it can't be just for free, and we've got to we've got somebody, somebody has to pay in some way, and this is about how we balance this so that we end up with people paying who can afford to pay, and
Mm-hmm.
people who can't afford to pay getting some degree of support, if not having it done for free. I mean, yes, the UK has a national health system, um, and they have a national health tax.
Mm-hmm.
I think if anybody believes that we don't actually have some effective degree of taxation in this
Oh
country,
gosh.
then you're wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the method that we have of raising revenue, one of the unfortunate things about it is that it is regressive, meaning it has a greater impact on those people who have much less money,
Mm-hmm.
that are in lower income earning bracket, and that's one of the unfortunate things. But as we grow, as our population grows, it is entirely possible that we may need to look at ways of addressing this
Mm-hmm.
through some sort of contribution. Um, but I don't know that we're ready for that yet. I don't know that we have to go to that at this point. Um, that would be a significant, sort of, um, well, I don't know if I would call it a shockwave, but it would certainly be a significant change that the country would have to manage very, 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 very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other approaches and other actions that we think can help address these issues before we took that sort of drastic kind of action.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's take one more caller, and then we'll do one more WhatsApp message as well. Good evening, caller. Thank you for calling Premier Access.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, Premium Sir.
Good
Thank you for
evening.
giving me an opportunity to talk to you. Very good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
Um, Sir, I'm a permit holder and I've been in Cayman Islands for now only 3 years. And due to certain issues at workplace, I had to ask for a self cancellation of my permit in the month of January.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot of time and effort for me to find another better job. Finally, I found a job, but it's been almost 7 weeks now. My permit papers have not yet been approved. And every other week or every other alternate weeks, I go to the immigration.
Mm-hmm.
I am bound to pay like $100 fee to them. And also going to immigration is like going for a big investigation. Like I used to be very scared and nervous waiting on the line with 200 other people, and when the turn comes, it's like they're going to investigate, check all your bank details, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody has an answer whether I'm going to get a permit or no. And now it's almost going to be 2 months, and I don't even know whether I'm going to get any more extensions to stay in the country.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it sounds to me like this is an issue that your prospective employer should be more concerned about and trying to assist. They're the ones that have to demonstrate that they have not been able to find someone who is resident already, legally resident, or someone who is a Caymanian to employ. And I think you need to. I hope you've had the conversation with them for them to follow up with
Yes,
immigration to find out
yes,
whether
I did.
they've answered all the necessary questions and satisfied the boards, whichever board it is, or if it's done administratively, that this work permit is needed. I mean, I'm sympathetic to your situation, um, but sometimes these issues do these permit issues do take time. And as you have indicated, you were on a work permit, and I'm sure you had a very legitimate reason for effectively. And it'd be interesting to find out how you self-canceled um, a work permit, because I think normally that is done by the employer. Um, but it's not going to be unusual for this to take 7 to 8 weeks. Is this a temporary permit, or is this a full-time,
It's
like a
a temporary permit, sir. It's a 3 months permit.
3-month permit? Okay.
And the employer said me that they have no answer from work. They've been trying to contact people, and they said it is under process. You have to wait for a longer time. I don't mind waiting, but I'm scared that one sudden day the immigration says no, I cannot get any more extensions, and I have to leave the country right away.
But I think the immigration would give you some time,
Yes.
even if they come to the conclusion that you have to leave. I guess once a final decision is made, they normally will give you time. They're not going to say leave tomorrow, because they appreciate that it takes time to, after living in a country for years, to organize your affairs. So hang in there.
Yes, I would suggest that time frame is probably a little bit in excess of what I would think it would normally take. But I don't know what the relevant factors are. And I would suggest that you continue with your efforts and just be patient and hang in there. And I do agree with Sandra. We are, whatever the outcome, if there's a decision not to renew it, you're not going to be told you have to leave the next day. You'd be normally given a period of time, a reasonable period of time, within which you could remain on island and sort out your personal affairs before you were asked to leave. If you are in an area that requires that you provide services that are required, then and for small, particularly for small Caymanian businesses, I do hope that you get your work permit sorted out. But that is going to be from a position of assuming that the employer has satisfied immigration that or work that they're not able to find anybody else appropriately to fill that role. So good luck, and thank you for
Thank you, sir.
thank you for your call, and have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, folks. So one final question coming through on WhatsApp. It says, "Hi, Sandy. A question for Premier Panton regarding the education system. What support do you have in place for teachers who are burnt out due to COVID-related stress in the schools? And what about the schools that are short-staffed?"
Well, I can't tell you that I can articulate the specific programs. So thanks for the question, but I think I believe the position is that the education department has facilities in place which can help teachers who are stressed and have had difficulty going through the various challenges that COVID has presented to teachers and to students in the schools. But I can't articulate exactly what they are at this point. I'm happy to if you want to contact my office directly, I'm happy to put you in touch with the relevant person who can provide that information. And if you are a teacher yourself, I would suggest that you contact Mr. Mark Ray, who is the director of the education department, or you could even speak directly to Ms. Setonya Cacho, who is the chief officer in the Ministry of Education. And I am certain that they can provide you with relevant information which would help you.
All right. And of course, the HSA has responded to that comment that they turn people away, and they say that no, they take people every single day who have no insurance coverage. So they're not in the business of turning people away. That is a government hospital after all.
They don't put people out on the street to die.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that might happen in Miami, but not in the Cayman Islands. Premier Panton, thank you so much. There were tons of other questions, and unfortunately, we cannot get to. Folks, every other week the Premier is here, so do tune in early next time. Get your questions ready. Ali says self-cancel and still here. You can actually cancel your own work permit, and you have to, provide a letter and a reason why. And I know in that particular case, it was actually a situation where the Caymanian was taking advantage of the worker by having her pay for her own work permit, pay for the business license. So when there's situations where there are abuses, you can't force someone to stay in a work permit situation just because their employer.
And that is the exact scenario that I had in mind. That is the exact scenario I had in mind when we were having a conversation earlier about, potential abuses of people, particularly domestic helpers. But also, it occurred to me that was a scenario in which you could, as you say, self-cancel, because we cannot have legitimized slavery going on in this country, and people who are committing offenses by having their employees pay for their own work permits or pay for their own health insurance and those types of things. Those are not things that we can condone, and that is an abuse of another human being, and that is not what the Cayman Islands is about. That's not what Caymankind is about.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Premier Panton, thank you very, very much for taking the time out to spend some of your day with us here on Premier Access. Thank all of our callers and listeners to the program. We had a good combination of calls coming in on the line, which of course is a new line. So keep that number in mind. Save it as the number to reach us here and once we're live on the show. And of course, you can always jump in via YouTube or Facebook as well with your comments. So Premier, we wish you a wonderful week between now and 2 weeks time when we see you again.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I really appreciate the opportunity. As always, you always do a fantastic job. Thank you to all of those people who have tuned in, who have been listening on the radio show and listening and watching the Facebook Live broadcast. Really appreciate it. As always, it is a pleasure to interact with the people of our country, residents or Caymanians alike. And we're here to serve. We're here to help our people as much as we can. So thank you. I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the week. Take care until we talk again. All the best.
All right, wonderful. So we're going to leave you guys with a little video clip of the Premier planting a tree on Saturday. And I also want to remind all of you that you can tune in tomorrow morning at 7:30. We'll be going live again on Bobo 89.1 FM. And tomorrow's special guest in the studio is going to be Sasha Tibbetts, the VP for customer service over at Caribbean Utilities Company. So CUC is going to be in the house, folks. So make sure you tune in for that. Get all your questions ready for CUC. Of course, we're all bracing for what is likely to be one of the toughest summers that we've had in a while as it relates to our electricity bills, just like fuel. It's all tied together and it's all going up, folks. So make sure you tune in tomorrow, 7:30. We'll have a preliminary discussion before he joins us around 8 o'clock. We've got a little bit of an update on Triple C, which you'd be very interested to find out what's going on there. Then we'll talk to Sasha. And then we're going to talk about the brother who assaulted the other brother. We got all the juicy details on what's actually going on in that really crazy family situation. So don't miss it tomorrow morning. Thank you, Miss Andrea. Thank you, Moya, for all of your positive comments, Damien and everybody else. Here's the Premier planting a tree on Saturday. He got the shovel out and was digging and lifting up that tree. So here we go. He's okay.
You have a shovel? When you finish that, I got some stuff down around. Yep, I'm available for cement mixing, all kinds of stuff. I was thinking of how to do it myself, but make sure nobody has a level right. Take that out. No, that's cool. Let me take it away from here now. You already did it. You already did it.
Hang on.
Top him off.
What was I doing wrong?
Oh, you're doing good.
Or are you just a control freak?
You might say that.
I made the music starts playing, you gotta start
And the first one is planted.
and then when the music starts playing at the award
I'm just trying to get so I can get my photo.
That's okay, we'll get a good photo with this.
Get it all nice and saturated.
Yeah.
Good job.
Beautiful.
So I'm gonna for the photo. You can lean up on it, looking at the tired.
The Cold Hard Truth now has your Premier access with Premier Panton.
Hello, everyone. This is Wayne Panton. Come and join me on Cayman Mar Road's Premier Access every other Wednesday at 7 p.m. for a frank and open Q&A session. I'm here to answer your questions about the issues that concern you the most. Tune into YouTube and Facebook Live on Wednesday. We will see you there.
Full transparency, answering your questions, down to earth, accountable, and accessible to who matters. You. Don't miss Premier access on the Cold Hard Truth, spilling the tea like no one else.